First of all, I appreciate everybody being here. Now, we're here for two reasons. Because of a very extremely tragic incident that has occurred, but on the other side of the coin, a conclusion to that tragedy. As all of you are well aware, last Thursday, March 30th, we received a call near Forest Lakes Park, where our first victim, Layla Silvernail, was located suffering from a gunshot wound. She would later succumb to her injuries. The following morning, we responded to a location about a half a mile away and located a second victim deceased on the side of the road from an apparent gunshot wound. Then on Saturday, April 1st, my deputies located Layla's car abandoned and partially submerged in a pond about 9 miles from the location where she was found. My investigators located the third victim inside of the car. And I'll go ahead and tell you, because you've been asking me for specific details. She was located in the trunk. Now, I want to clear up before we get into those details. Based on the interviews, digital evidence from her phone, she was there of her own free will. Now, I'm going to start off by thanking all of the entities. If there's ever a true example of law enforcement, communities coming together and a almost perfect collaboration to come to a conclusion in a week on a triple homicide is truly amazing. Those entities include the FBI, FDLE, U.S. Marshal's Office, and in my opinion, probably the best state attorney in the state of Florida for the 5th Judicial Circuit, Bill Gladson's assistant state attorneys. OPD, my deputies, detectives, forensic professionals, and our citizens, who are truly amazing. Now, this one's going to come a shock to you. That includes you, the media. You helped us of getting information. My emotions right now are all over the place because I am so proud of my guys and girls. I didn't do a damn thing, but they stepped up to the plate. And yes, you put information out there, and I'll admit this, you wore my ass out of interviews, you hounded me, but don't ever think I didn't use you as well to get the information I needed. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they were referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them, in some shape or form, is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these three individuals turned on our three victims and murdered them. Two of them right there. They fled the scenes, but left a lot of evidence in their wake. Through the cooperation of the agencies that I previously mentioned and my office, we were able to begin compiling all of the evidence and finding these killers. Now, we were shocked and saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens, because we are shocked not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well. I know each of you in the media here and viewers out there probably heard us in law enforcement or even in community events talk about what is the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and address the first thing that I know it's going to come up. Because there are individuals out there viewing, and to include some of you media, that want to blame the one thing that has no ability or the capacity to commit the crime itself. And that's the gun. These individuals committed the crime. Now, what's the solution? I wish I could give you that answer, because this world would be a whole lot better. But the fact is, society fails it. We do not hold our juveniles accountable. We minimize their actions. And let me tell you why I say this. Last night, I had to stare into the eyes of two mothers. It's not their fault. Because what I saw last night was two mothers who are willing to give their sons everything, do everything for them, and give them their own lives. But just like you and I, no matter how much we teach them, because I am a father, I am a father, and I cannot fathom what they were going through. These mothers and mothers across this nation need all of your help. Because here's what infuriates me. I've got a particular media who has a problem with putting photos of juveniles out. Now, we do it what the law says we can do. Put these photos out. I put myself in the shoes of those mothers because I heard one of them say it. I wish I would have known what this one was doing and who they were, because my kid never would have hung out with them. And to think and believe to minimize any actions that is criminal of a juvenile is a disservice, and frankly, stupid to think. We need to hold them accountable. And then hope that we can change them. I'm not going to be able to give you everything because there is a third suspect that we were unable to locate last night. But however, you will receive, you may already have it, the probable cause affidavit that tells you the details of the events that occurred. I will tell you this. I already told you of the witness hearing the gunshots. That is when all three were killed. The suspects were in the vehicle. This individual, who is a juvenile also, is who we're looking for. Now, I'm talking to the viewers. Some of you know him, you know where he is, and you need to turn him in. Now, I will get him. I will find him, and justice will be completed. As you can imagine, my thoughts are all over this page right now. Fighting these type of crimes requires all of us to come together as a community. And Marion County stepped up to the plate. And we've been successful. Now, I know I've forgotten something, and I'm missing something, so I'm going to open up the floor to questions.
Any type of motive given?
Mentioned it. Robbery.
Sheriff Woods,
Go to her first.
I want to clarify. I know you said the suspects were in the vehicle, so are you saying all 6 were in there at one time?
Yes, ma'am.
And so the 3 individuals, the 2 that are in custody, and this person, they turned on the other 3 in the vehicle, and that's how this unfolded.
That's correct.
In the commission of a robbery of the 3 victims?
Not going to get into too many more of those details because of the 3rd suspect being out.
Sheriff Woods, Ted Williams with Fox News. Did the suspects and the 3 dead teens, have you been able to determine how long they've known each other?
Not entirely. Short time.
Short time?
Sheriff, you mentioned the gun. Do we know how the suspects got a hold of the weapon?
Car burglaries. Yeah. Ain't that right? All the gun laws we got in place didn't prevent it, did it? Neither will any new ones. Because here's the fact. The bad guy's going to get a gun no matter what law you have put in place. These juveniles shouldn't even possess a handgun. But they did. And I'll go back to you. Add your question. A simple burglary, as some people will say, but I don't consider anything simple when it comes to a burglary. If the law allows me, I'll plaster their face up on this page, up on my page, up on media. I will hand it out if the law allows me, because parents have the right to know who their kids are hanging out with and preventing this.
What did the suspect's parents say when you spoke with them about their arrest?
I personally didn't speak to them about the arrest. It was immediately after the interviews in which I talked to the mothers. But really, they don't have a whole lot to say. If you're a parent, put yourself in their shoes. Holy hell. Panic. I'm scared to death as a parent. Embarrassed. Ashamed. What do you think they're going to say?
Sheriff Woods, do you know if these 3 juveniles will be tried as adults?
All right, State Attorney's Office is reviewing that right now, okay? So I don't want to say yes and then it turn around no, then you'll end up calling me a liar at some point. So.
What does to kind of piggyback off that, so what does accountability look like for you? I know you talked about juveniles being held accountable for their actions.
I will refrain an awful lot on that answer to this question, to the full extent of the law. Okay, don't take me wrong. I might be hard on people, but I also have a heart. And I've already told you, I am a father. But here's the one thing my boys know. Growing up, the freaking barber had my permission to whip their asses. And not only that, when this stuff came up on TV, I pointed them. I said, you don't have to worry about the law coming after you. Full extent. Because they took a life. Are y'all comprehending that? They took a life without thought. They deserved the full extent of the law.
Had you come in contact with these teens before? Because I see the pictures. Are these mugshots from previous incidents?
I personally haven't, but have we?
Minimal contact.
Minimum contact, I can tell you right now. I know somebody over here had a question.
Chair?
Andy?
Do I understand correctly that the 3 victims were an active part of crimes prior to their deaths with these 3? Is that correct?
I don't want to give too much detailed information, okay? But let me put it this way. My dad was a fireman. Always said, where there's smoke, there's fire, okay? Folks, don't ask dumbass questions. And Andy, I apologize. But really? Do I have to spell it out to you? What do you think they were doing? They're associated with a gang, and I've told some of y'all in interviews, gangs don't go to church on Sunday and then preach the gospel for the next 6 days. They're gangs because they commit crimes. How simple is this idea? Where are we losing it? And I know we're going long, but this is my press conference, not yours.
Sheriff, if
Yes.
If all 6 were committing crimes, do you know why the 3 turned on the other 3?
I can't divulge that. I wish I could tell you. I'll tell you when we get this one. Okay? Listen, I want to tell you everything. I really do. And since day one, I've wanted to tell you anything. They have had a leash on me like you wouldn't believe. Next. Let's get somebody new.
Do we know the timeline of the 3 victims in terms of how they were shot? Was it all at once? And then?
Hold back.
Okay.
You heard the bosses.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how they were apprehended? Were they hanging out somewhere? How were you able to catch up with them?
Do you want
Go ahead. The one subject on the previous photo, Rob Robinson, was in custody already at the juvenile detention facility. And the Christopher Atkins, the 12-year-old, we located him at his house yesterday after serving a search warrant.
So they weren't on the run or anything. Were they even surprised to even see you show up?
Yes, they were very surprised we showed up.
Are you able to make any statements as to what they said?
I'll leave that to the sheriff.
No, you'll get that eventually. We told you he was in DJJ. He was arrested by OPD the next morning after the murder.
What were the charges on that?
In an affray at the school. Oh,
Fight.
that's what I call a light bulb coming on right there. Remember I just talked about minimizing and holding students accountable? Our school districts, not just here, I'm not going to point out just mine, school districts across this state and across this nation need to quit minimizing the actions of their students. Hold them accountable. That's where the failure is.
Do we know where the last suspect was seen?
The last place he was seen.
We're going to hold that one.
Did all 3 have guns, or was it just one gun? And which one pulled the trigger? Do we know that at this point?
All right. Some of that I'm not going to answer.
Okay.
Some of it I will. The one I will is the 2 confessed to shooting our 3rd victim in the trunk.
How many guns were involved?
I'm not going to answer that one. I appreciate your questions. You wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't ask. Any others?
Sheriff, does the 3rd suspect, does the public need to worry about him?
No, the community doesn't need to worry about them outside of, I want them to find them. That's what they need to worry about, is locating him for me. And they do. If you ain't ever watched my Wanted by Woods Wednesday, that's successful and they find them. I'll allow one more.
Are these juveniles all students at the same school?
No. All righty. Thank you.
All right, that wraps up that news conference as we have learned that 2 arrests have been made and 1 suspect is still wanted in connection with the murders there of 3 teenagers over a span of 3 days there. You can see that news conference just wrapping up over in Marion County. I do want to bring in a guest now to help break down everything that we did just learn during that news conference here. Let's bring in Joe Thompson, a retired NYPD detective and host of YouTube's Crime Talk with Joe Thompson. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me. Good morning.
Of course. So what stood out to you there? Because I believe at one point he did say one of those suspects was just 12 years old.
Yeah, wow, this is a crazy case here. Listening to some of the details, I mean, obviously, we're left here with some more questions and answers from that press conference, but the sheriff did a tremendous job. I mean, you could tell how passionate he was about this case and overall. But yeah, this is definitely going to be one of these tricky ones where you wonder what these kids were thinking.
Do you think, and we have not seen the paperwork just yet, the arrest reports and things of that nature that are going to be released by the Marion County Sheriff really any minute now, so we'll be able to get our hands on them. Do you think in a case like this there are going to be a lot of specifics that are released, or do you think they're going to hold a lot kind of close to the vest there and release only what they have to?
Well, most likely they're going to hold back a lot until the 3rd suspect is taken into custody. For obvious reasons, you know, they don't want to jeopardize the trial down the line. So he refrained very well in the press conference. I understand his passion. He wants to give all the details out there. He knows he can't. He knows what his limitations are by the law. And also the last thing you want to do is give some specifics that maybe this last suspect is the only person that would know. And then you wind up letting this guy go because of something that you give out. So I give him a lot of credit for his refraining.
Is it surprising, just based in your experience, to find out that these are juvenile suspects?
Unfortunately, no. You're starting to see this a lot more. And he made a comment which I wholeheartedly agree with. The problem in society, it's not just here in Florida, it's throughout the country. We're not holding these kids accountable for their actions. You see it every day in the cities. You see the lack of respect that these kids have for adults, for police, for authority figures. It's systemic. It's throughout our country, and it's sending the message to the kids that they can do whatever the hell they want, whenever the hell they want, and that's the wrong message to give. And that's something that really needs to be considered here. These kids went out and did such a heinous crime. And they acted surprised when they came and picked them up today. You heard what he said, or yesterday when they picked them up. So, that's a big part of the problem here. Juvenile crimes is certainly rising, and it's certainly due to how we treat juveniles in our society.
And something that the sheriff brought up, and I just want to get kind of your opinion on, he said that a lot of, let's say, news agencies aren't showing photos of suspects who are underage there. Based on your experience and your experience with media there in New York City, for instance, what are your thoughts about that overall? I just kind of want to get your personal perspective on that.
Well, I've always believed that you should release photos of somebody, especially in a homicide investigation. There's really no worse crime that you can commit, and you have to get to the bottom of it. I understand where some of the media, it's a bit of a gray area legally. Some media outlets, I know for a fact, they worry about the legality of putting a photo out there and possibly getting sued for it later on. Others may have an agenda where they feel that the juvenile's photo doesn't belong out in the public. So it really is an individual thing from media to media, depending on the circumstances. But in my honest opinion, you have a homicide investigation. The media is a big part of coming to a conclusion on this. As he said, getting the message out there and trying to locate these kids is the most important thing you could possibly do. The police can't do this stuff on their own. They need the help of the public, and that goes right through the media. So anybody who doesn't cooperate with it, shame on them, but they, I get partly why they may not do it.
Of course. And then my next question for you here, why do you think that this is getting such national attention? You have seen this essentially dominating the headlines in a lot of areas, not just in Florida, but nationwide. Obviously, here we're talking about it. What is it about this case specifically that is garnering this national attention?
Well, it's another one of these cases that's a big mystery. You hear about three, young kids getting killed, and you wonder why. The initial reports that came out, people immediately started thinking it was a serial killer. After we had the Idaho murders, people are on edge. People are aware of that case still, and they hear something like this, and they think, is this something similar to that? And it becomes, a big mystery to people, and people want to get to the bottom of it. You got juveniles involved here, and most of us are parents, and to hear stuff like this, it really hits the heart of the individual as well as it does most of us in the country here.
Have you ever, just in your experience, experienced a case like this one that we are watching so closely and seen, the flow of information? Because the Marion County Sheriff was actually releasing a lot of details here after the first few days. As you mentioned, he said, this is not a serial killer. We believe we know who did this. It is an isolated incident, even though we do have 3 bodies that have been recovered over a 3-day period. Have you ever seen a case like this and seen the flow of information the way that it is coming out?
Well, I think that, again, the sheriff did an outstanding job. I mean, he put the public at ease by saying that it's not a serial killer, and that's his job. You hear that there's panic and alarm in the community, and you need to get out there in front of it and try to, let the public know that they're not in any danger. So, again, my hat's off to him. He did a tremendous job. Outstanding sheriff over there in Marion County. New York City was a little different. We dealt with, juvenile homicides, especially where I was. And, they didn't want to release too much information at all. New York City is a little bit of a different animal, so to speak, than it is here in Florida. So we didn't release as much information. But, a lot of times, again, it's because of the integrity of the case. Even when you do have a suspect in custody, you got to be very careful about what you say about it in the media and what gets out, what gets leaked, because that will definitely come back and bite you when it goes to trial. I mean, I've been in trials too sometimes, and things have come out, that were out in the public eye, and you have to explain it. And sometimes the context of things gets changed around, and that's how it's very easy for someone to slip through the cracks and get let off over a technicality. So that's the last thing we want as law enforcement to have happen to us, and especially in a case like this.
Of course. Joe Thompson, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Is there anything else that you want to add before I let you go?
Just that, again, my hat's off to the sheriff, and my hat's off to the public, too. From what he had said in his press conference, the public was instrumental, the media was instrumental in getting the end results here, where, at least these parents can get some closure. I can't fathom going through something like this myself as a father, but, at least these parents will get a little bit of closure on this.
And I just thought of one more question before I let you go. Sure. Here. They obviously put out the image of that 3rd suspect, the one that they are still looking out for here. Is that, in your opinion, in your experience, a good idea to do that? Because on the one hand, you, of course, want to get that image out there so people are on the lookout, but could it cause more danger? That person knows that they're being looked for. Just kind of explain to me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's very true. Sometimes when you let people know that you're out there looking for them, they evade you and they try to disappear. And some of them are very good at it. And you got to look at the case here in particular. This is a juvenile, so his amount of resources to maybe flee, as well as somebody who's a little bit older, who has the money, who has the vehicle, who has the way to get out of town, you have to be a little bit more delicate with a situation like that. In this particular case, this is a juvenile, probably limited resources to be able to get out. And I think that somebody is going to see him. It's going to be important that law enforcement gets to him as soon as possible. I don't think that they would have released an image of him if they don't have an idea of where he may be. So I think it's just a matter of time before they announce that they got him in custody.
All right, Joe Thompson, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help break it down for us.
My pleasure, Josh. Thanks as always.